Talk Radio, you're in to all things music.
Some of the greatest music ever made was made before the click track. Music is a rubber band. It is not a brick. A rubber band has ebb and flow to it. It bends, it moves. Music is a palm tree, not an oak tree. An oak tree is stiff. When a storm comes, the wind blows, it cracks. But a palm tree is supple, and it flows. So I think all great music has a natural ebb and flow to it. If you analyze like the music of Motown, you can put a click track on the beginning of the tune and at the end of the tune, you'll find that the tempo has changed. But the emotion is so strong and it's powerful.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Everybody, welcome to Jackie's Groove. This is Jackie Bertoni, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network. You're into all things music. Guys, it is Friday, May the 12th, a beautiful, happy sunny Friday here in Los Angeles, California, San Diego area. And I am pleased and I am privileged to have on my show today an iconic R&B funk drummer / author. We're gonna get more heavily into that. He and I have known each other. We've passed the hallways of NAMM together. We've shared albums together, but we've never, ever played live together. So this is going to be our first performance live without instruments, just our voices. So with that said, everybody, I want everybody to welcome to my show, Jackie's Groove, a gentleman that was born on June 13th, 1962, under the name of Daniel Donnelly. Other than family members and close family members and friends, you may not know that name, Daniel Donnelly, but you do know his worldwide famous name by the name of Zoro. So with that said, everybody, I want everybody to welcome with open arms and open ears to Jackie's Groove, my brother, Zoro. Zoro, welcome, brother.
Oh, man, great to be here, Jackie. Thank you so much for the honor and privilege of being able to do this show with you. I'm really pumped.
Yeah, man, you're part of now this ever-growing, iconic roster of amazing players. As I was telling Steve Smith from Journey on Monday, I don't know what it is about me, and I can't get away from drummers. But when you're a percussionist, we kind of go hand in hand here. So we're really, really excited. And also, too, the fact that all your brothers over at DW Drum Workshop are listening, and also John Good and Don Lombardi. So we're going to say a special hi to them also. So
awesome.
Listening in.
Those are my brothers.
Yeah, man. It's all good, brother. So let's talk about your when you were brought into this world, this bundle of joy for the Donnelly family. Where were you born and where were you raised, brother?
Well, okay, so going all the way back to the beginning, I was born here in Los Angeles, California. I was actually born in Torrance, and I'm the son of an immigrant mother. My mother was from Mexico City, and I was raised completely by a single mother who raised 7 children alone. I started off a little shaky in this world. At 6 months, my father said he told my mother he was going to the grocery store. He went to the grocery store and he never came back. I guess he's still shopping there. And the only thing he left when he left me was a set of bongos. And so it was so interesting that it was almost prophetic. He only leaves me a set of bongos, and the bongos become my past becomes my future. Of course, I have no idea at that time that I'm going to become a drummer, but I was abandoned by him. And then when he moved back to where he was from, which was Chicago, he had told all of his people and his friends and family said what happened to the Mexican woman that you married and the baby?" And he said, "Oh, she died giving birth to him. They died." So I was basically left for dead, which is why eventually when I changed my name to Zoro, I didn't want to carry on his name. I figured if he was going to leave me for dead, I'm going to create a new name. And that's where Zoro was born out of that. It was born out of my Mexican heritage because my mother was from Mexico. And it became part of who I was. Like I was always, because I grew up fatherless and I grew up in South Central LA. I grew up in Compton here in Los Angeles. And by the time I was in fourth grade, we'd probably moved already like 20, 25 times. And we were very impoverished with a single mother trying to raise 7 alone. And so it wasn't uncommon that I would use my red Radio Flyer wagon to help my family move furniture from one apartment to the next, which would usually be a mile or two down the road. We didn't have money for a U-Haul. So that's kind of how I grew up, and that's kind of how it all started.
Zoro, is Mama still with us?
No, she's not. She passed away in 2004, which was a terribly sad day in my life. But she did live to see me fulfill all of my childhood dreams, and it was her dream for me to do what I was doing. She actually was an actress in Mexico City, and her dream was to become, a leading actress. She had done small bit parts and stuff, but life threw her some curveballs, and that didn't work out. But so she was very happy to see me live out my dream for the second generation.
Zoro, if you mind me asking, how old was Mama when we lost her?
She was only like about 72. She wasn't that old.
My mama, I asked that question because, you and I are virtually the same age. I'm 2 years older than you are. And it's really, really weird, Zoro. You think about this, over the past, let's say the past 10 years. And we'd go to NAMM. And then back in Tyco, I'm just using the term here, I think it was in 94 when we had the big Northridge quake. And everybody at NAMM would say, "Hey, man, how you doing, man? Hey, how'd you do with the earthquake?" "Yeah, well, we did okay." And then 10 years after that, we would, or the following year would be, "Hey, man, how's things going?" "Everything's going good." "Is Mom and Dad still with us?" "Yeah, Mom and Dad's still with us." "Yeah, thank God." Or now they're not. And then, of course, last NAMM, we're sitting around talking, and my wife reminded me that of all the conversations we had at our Saturday night dinner, the majority of the conversations all stemmed from prostate. So you're getting older, man. Is when that was the highlight of the conversation, and I bring that part up because I wanted to ask and you answered your own question. Mama was around to see your success, and so was my mom.
That's
and I'm
awesome.
Thankful. I'm forever thankful. And my mom and your mom. My mom was a single mother before it became trendy, if you will. And my dad died when I was 8 years old, and my mom raised us. My mom was the father and the mother, man, and she was the one that instilled the music. People ask me, "How did you become a percussionist?" I'm going to go back to your little bongos. But my mom never put sticks in my hands because she didn't want me to mar up the furniture. So she bought me my first pair of little bongos, the tricolored brown with the little tacks on the outside of it. I think we all had those, and I'm sure those are the ones you probably had also.
Yeah, the ones with the tacks, yeah.
Yeah. And so when was it that you actually discovered the fact that bongos were going to be put to the side, and all of a sudden these things called sticks, drumsticks, and that amazing intro song that we had that was just like a Triplets on Overdose. Let's talk about the genesis of that song. What did we hear? Where was that from?
Well, basically, so how I really started, the bongos were the only things he left me, but I never actually played them. In fact, I have a picture in my archives of me at like 18 months in a stroller with a pair of these like bongos with the kind of the blue oyster or the black oyster pearl kind of wrap around them with the tacks. And but I never, and actually my father was a drummer, which is even weirder because I never spent a day in my life with him, but that's how strong DNA is. But at 10 years old in the streets of Compton, California, I was drawn. I grew up listening to all kinds of, soul music and gospel, and my mother loved Frank Sinatra and big band and Nat King Cole and mariachi music, and my sisters and brothers loved rock and roll, and so I grew up around tons of music. And then my first dabblings in anything rhythmically would be I would grab these empty almond roca cans because I used to sell almond roca on the streets, and then I would grab plastic Tupperware containers and even like an oatmeal box, and I would set up on the street in Compton, California, turn the transistor radio on, have some old soul or Motown playing, and I just kind of jam with my hands. I didn't know I was going to be a drummer, but I was like drawn to it. So that's kind of how it all started. And then we moved up. We moved from Compton, California, which was like the set of Sanford and Son, is what my neighborhood looked like. And then we moved up to Oregon, up into the mountains in a small town of Oregon called Grants Pass, which was like moving to the set of the Waltons or Little House on the Prairie. So it was like one extreme to the other. But up there, when we first got there, I didn't like it. And my mother she wanted to make my first Christmas feel better. So she bought me, out of the Sears catalog for $9.99, she bought me a Mickey Mouse drum set. It was made of paper heads. It was literally Mickey Mouse on the cover. It was a toy. But that day I got it Christmas morning, I was totally psyched. I destroyed it by Christmas evening because it was just paper heads. It wasn't like a professional kit. But that's kind of, after that, I had really wanted to play the drums, and I tried to join the school band. Every year I would go from the 5th grade on and try to sign up to play drums. And every year they said, there's too many drummers, you can't play the drums. So year after year I was turned away. They made me play the violin for like one semester. I hated it. And then they pawned me off on the trumpet, and I equally hated it. And all of it was to try to get to drums, but it wouldn't really start for a long time, actually. I didn't actually start playing till I was 16.
What got you there? Was there a drummer that just actually knocked your socks off that said, you know what, I can do this also? Who was that drummer, if there was one?
Well, it wasn't so much at that time a particular drummer. It was more like bands. It was more like I would hear, the funky music of Motown, or I would hear James Brown or Aretha Franklin or Otis Redding. I was drawn to the grooves, and I remember on the streets in Compton, like it was tunes that had funky drum breakdowns, like Grazing in the Grass and any of these, Motown tunes like 25 Miles High or Shaft or anything where you could hear the drums kind of driving the groove, or where the drums would be featured, were already kind of beckoning me down that path of groove. I was immediately drawn to it very magnetically. And so I imagined myself being a drummer for a long time before I ever played, but it was those kind of songs that made me want to play. So I didn't really know drummers at that time. I just knew bands. And then I think when I was 16, I started, watching The Tonight Show. And then I would see like, Buddy Rich on there and go like, wow, that's awesome. You know what I mean? And just, but it wasn't a particular, like a lot of people will say, well, it was, Ringo Starr did it for me or whatever, but that wasn't my case. With me, it was soul groups, R&B groups, funk groups. I didn't know who the drummers were, but I dug the music. And one of those groups was Earth, Wind and Fire. Like when I heard that band and I heard the music of I used to sit with the album covers, laying on the couch open, and I would just be mesmerized by this incredible music. And I would say to myself, one day I'm going to meet those guys, and one day I'm going to meet them. I would just have these visions, these imaginations, of a kid, and just, And then, not many years later, in 1983, I started playing with Philip Bailey, the lead singer of Earth, Wind and Fire. But it all started on a couch where I'm just flipping the album open, listening to it, and just being transfixed by this incredible music. Albums like Head to the Sky and That's the Way of the World and Spirit and All in All and I Am. So I became a fan more of the bands, and then later started kind of learning who the drummers were, because there wasn't a lot known about R&B drummers then.
Right.
These guys weren't in magazines. They weren't on the covers of things. The jazz guys were known and the rock guys were known, but the R&B guys, for the most part, unless you were reading the liner notes, they kind of remained faceless and nameless. But that's the music I was drawn to.
And kids, Zoro just said something right now, too. And when I say kids, I mean the millennials. He said two things. He said, number one, he said an album. And the second part he said was liner notes. Something, as I've said, and I've preached this on the daily when I do my interviews, it is just amazing what the millennials, if you will, and if even beyond that, what they're missing. I mean, don't you miss, Zoro, record release Tuesdays? I mean,
going to
going to Tower, going to Virgin, Going to Amoeba, whatever it was, and even if you weren't on that album, it's just that figure of the Big 33 or when it became CDs, just going through that and rifling through the system and looking through the bins. Something that, you really don't get that flavor and that taste when you're going on a thing called iTunes and you're scrolling down and you digitally pick it up. And we're going to talk more about that as we get deeper in here, because you and I are, we're a little bit long in the tooth, but that's okay. We're not as old as a lot of the guys I'm interviewing. And you're talking about Earth, Wind, and Fire. I had the privilege of actually auditioning for them. We talked about that with David Romero a couple weeks ago. And the fact of the matter is, when you grow up listening to the music and then all of a sudden you find yourself playing with those luminaries, it's an aha, pinch my skin moment, because I still blow myself out of the water. And and I'm sure you'll agree with me. Philip is one of the Philip Bailey from Earth, Wind, and Fire is one of the sweetest men you will ever meet in your life. We maintained a friendship over the term, and we've had a lot of the generations of Earth, Wind, and Fire musicians here on Jackie's Groove. And I also got Morris O'Connor. Awesome. Morris O'Connor's coming up. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks. The current guitar player. And
I know Morris.
Yeah, and we already had John. John Paris has already been on the show, having a great time. And so we're moving right along, man. And I'm rounding it out because you said something earlier. You said a whole different melding of music. Salsa, cumbia, Engelbert Humperdinck, Frank Sinatra, and so on that Mom listened to. So you answered my question as what was coming through the speakers of the Zoro home. Now, with that said, it could be the reason why there's such an eclectic blend of groups that you worked with. I mean, New Edition, Bobby Brown, Tina Marie, one of my girls, Philip Bailey, Jody Watley, still beautiful to this day. You're talking about Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. I mean, Sean Lennon and Lenny Kravitz. Could you have chosen polar opposites to play with all along the line? And we're going to pick up more of that, because here's that minute left of this of the first segment, and you see, Zoro, how fast the segment runs by.
Yeah.
And wow. I want to talk, and the listeners want to hear out there, your fans and the new fans want to hear about your feelings and when you got these calls, and were the calls retroactive one after the other when you added these major acts to your resume? Or are we still busting our ass to get the next gig? And we're going to talk more about that, because, we want to influence the people out there and understand it's going to take to keep yourself relevant in this ever-changing thing called the music business. And the word music and business, I don't think it shares the same line. It should never do. And that's why we have to persevere and get above and beyond that. So, put your thinking cap on, Zoro. When we come back, we're really going to chop it up some more. We're going to talk about what it takes to get yourself prepared for either studio / or going on the road. And we'll talk about your road trips and so on. We'll talk about stories if you want to talk about fun anecdotes, et cetera, et cetera. So with that said, guys, I want everybody to sit back. I want you to relax. I want you to get yourself a beverage, because you don't want to miss what we've got coming up with Zoro here. I'm proud and I'm privileged right now, man, and I'm smiling ear to ear that I am talking to a gentleman, and I'm going to use the term, we're going to welcome you into the Hat Society, because you, the CEO of my network, Zoro, and everybody else in our age, we seem to be wanting to strap on those brims. And we're going to talk about what made you famous through the years. So with that said, guys, don't go anywhere. Jackie Bertoni, this is Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network. You're into all things music. Stay tuned, kids. We'll be right back after a short break. Don't go anywhere.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it, because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Everybody, welcome back to segment number 2. 2 already, man. It blew by the first one. This is Jackie Bertoni. You're tuned in to Jackie's Groove. Brought to you by the Intertalk Radio Network. You're into all things music. And do me a favor, do yourselves a favor. When you can't listen to my show or the plethora of our shows on Intertalk Radio, go to Apple iTunes or Google Play and download our easy-to-use and navigate application. It's free. 2 words, Intertalk Radio. And that's, take us on the groove with you, man. Take Jackie's Groove and Intertalk Radio anywhere. It's called streaming, baby. And the magical word is free. So do yourselves a favor. Now, welcome back on segment number 2, my brother Zoro. Zoro, do me a favor. That song we just came in, man, was Jupiter, but it didn't sound like Earth, Wind & Fire. What was the genesis of that tune?
Well, I wanted to do that tune on my instructional DVD, The Commandments of R&B Drumming. So I basically got my buddies, some of the greatest players in L.A., including Al McKay from Earth, Wind & Fire, who's on that track, to go in and cut that tune. Yeah, he's so funky. And so I wanted to do that tune because I wanted to kind of demonstrate in the video, that style of feel, which is like sort of the 2-hand 16th note groove. So that's where that particular track came from, which then ended up on my CD called Zoro the Funky Drummer, because I just put a lot of great covers of tunes that I loved on there. But so that's how that came about.
Who was the vocalist on that tune?
A guy named Adam Jackson.
Killed it, man.
A singer here in LA, really burning singer. So, in fact, I actually also on that album I cut Loveland by Charles Wright and the Watts 103rd Rhythm Street Band. And when I shared it with James Gadsden, he goes, man, I would have sang on that for you, because, Gadsden sang lead vocals on that song. And he goes, but the key you did it in was too high for me now, because I can't sing in that key anymore. So I was like, oh, man, I would have loved to have had him sing on it.
I don't know if you're hip to it at all, but Al's got a great album. It was actually released about 5 years ago called Al Dente. And it's I played
on it.
Shut up, man. Really? Did you?
Yeah, I played on that album, Al Dente, yeah. That's Al McKay and the LA All-Stars.
Yeah, man. I was actually Richie Garjate Garcia, our mutual friend. He played all the percussion on that, and he made me privy to that. In fact, I've been trying to get Al on the show, and we're going to lock it up, sooner or later, because it's got to be promoted. And forgive me for being blatant, and everybody I've said this to has kind of agreed with me, but I mean, I love the new generation of Earth, Wind & Fire. I mean, you can't take away their legacy. But Al McKay and the Al McKay All-Stars are playing Earth, Wind & Fire like it was meant to play. That's my personal opinion as a musician. It's not commercial. It's the way it was written. How do you feel about that, man? Do you agree with me that Al is still knocking it out and playing Earth, Wind & Fire the way it should be played?
Well, sure. And I mean, I've known Al since I was 18 years old, and he's a dear friend. He lives around the corner from me, and he's just carrying on the tradition of that sound. And I always called him the fire of Earth, Wind & Fire. Rhythm guitar is what holds it all together. And I played with Al many times with his rendition of Earth, Wind & Fire. He calls the Al McKay All-Stars or the LA All-Stars. He used to call it the Earth, Wind & Fire All-Stars. We used to play at the NAMM show every year for several years. We did it one show where it was us and Tower of Power, which we knocked it out of the ballpark. It's like two great groups. But I love all those guys, and each one is just, doing what they feel led to do. But he's definitely carrying on the tradition of that sound. I remember playing on the tune called Evil, which is, and I recorded it at his house.
Please.
On Al Dente. And it was
number 2.
Really cool.
Track number 2.
Yeah.
That's
funny. It's funny you know that record.
I know the record because I've overdosed on it because you're talking to one of the biggest Earth, Wind & Fire fans. I mean, my start, I broke my teeth, back in 79 when I joined Tower of Power for 3 years. And that was my introduction into horns. I was 19 years old playing with the funkiest band. And by the way, we just said to Mr. Herman Matthews, they're going on 50 years next year, man.
Wow.
I mean, it shows the relevance. Hey, well, look at this. Chicago just celebrated 50 years themselves this year. And it's
unbelievable.
And as I said, I'll repeat it again. I mean, a week ago Saturday was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 2017, and I was just sitting here with my wife watching the show of all of these old farts on stage. I mean, I can say that because I'm younger than them. You're younger than them. And I said on my Facebook post, kids, the people on stage right now are as old as, if not older than, your parents. And the reason why they're on stage right now is because they play real effing music. They're playing real effing instruments. And that's what pulls everything, and that's what drives it forward. And I've always said this, man, and I'm going to probably wash my mouth out with soap, and retract. But I always say, kids, you're not going to have relevance by sitting in front of a camera on YouTube and singing. You've got to get beat up. You've got to get bruised. You've got to have doors slammed in your face. And then here it is. I got booked on the show next week. A gentleman by the name of Lawrence Park. Are you hip to him at all? He's he is an amazing Asian brother that's got a voice that is like an angel, and he gets about 1.5 million views, every other week. And he's like the god on YouTube. And so I got to retract this now because I'm bringing him on the show, and we're gonna see how we can help promote him. He's emerging, and he's huge, and he's got this thing called Lawrence Park Karaoke, and he's singing with everybody, with Jonas Brothers and Tori Kelly, and the list goes down the line. So, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm not. So with that said, let's get back to our old ways of doing business, man, of taking our rig to the gig. Before there was a thing called techs. And we would have to sit there and we'd have to set our stuff. As we were younger, Zoro, I'm sure you remember those days, we brought more instruments that we needed. We had that Neil Peart setup. And as we get older, thankfully in our business, we have techs. I love them beyond, but there's still some of the gigs there that Zoro's still setting up his drums. Do you mind doing that? Does it bring you back home, kind of keep you humble, or would you rather have your tech with you 24/7?
I mean, honestly, at this stage of my life, I'd rather have somebody set it up. It's not a prima donna thing. It's just like, no. I'm not 21 anymore, and I enjoy the playing aspects of it. I've never been super technical. Like I'm a player, but I'm not a techie in terms. Some guys are very technical with their gear and their setup. I'm a real simple guy. I always play a pretty small kit. I mean, I played a big kit with Bobby Brown and Lenny Kravitz, but most of that was for show. They wanted something bigger for particular tours for whatever reasons. I'm still simple. If I was setting it up, I mean, there were gigs I did when I went to Berklee College of Music back when I went in 1981. They didn't have like drum sets set up in every room like they do now. Now somebody endorses them and they fill up the whole place with drum sets. Right. I would have to schlep my kit from one place to another, which was real far. So at that particular time, I decided, you know what, I'm not carrying all of these toms and stands. This stuff's too dang heavy. So I would only practice in those practice rooms with kick, snare, and hat. But that's actually what refined my groove like crazy. is and sometimes I'd go in there and practice with just the hi-hat and go, what can I do for 2 hours with just the hi-hat? And then I became more of the hi-hat became the strongest part of my voice and my playing. But a lot of that, and then if I would do club gigs in L.A., blues gigs or whatever, sometimes I didn't feel like carrying all those heavy stands and toms.
Right.
I would just carry kick, snare, and hat and one cymbal that would be like a crash ride. It would be like a groove crash from Sabian. That it could be a ride, it could be a crash, because I just didn't want to, and some of those little stages were small, I just didn't want to schlep all that stuff. People would turn around and look at me like, man, where's your drums? I'm like, they're right here. And once I started playing, I mean, it's just I locked the groove for hours, and they never missed all the other stuff. But that's because it was just a drag to set it all up. But I'd rather just walk into a place and have it set up, and then my energy is not depleted from the setup. It now goes into the performance. But the older you get, the more work everything is.
Trust me. I was talking to, I don't remember who I was talking to last week. We were talking about clubs that have gone by the wayside because, unfortunately, clubs in Los Angeles are dropping off like flies. But we were talking about a great club. I'm sure you frequented it on a regular basis, but it was a great club called Le Cafe. And you talk about trying to schlep your rig up in the back of the venue up about 40 steps. That was, we're just talking about when we were young, we used to walk up those steps, run up those steps, and I brought that up just for the fact that if we go out and we see Zoro live right now in 2017, for the younger players out there, for the players, period, what are we going to look at in the way of DW drums? What are we going to see on a regular basis in Zoro City behind that trap set?
You're always going to see a 4-piece DW kit, and my setup has not changed, in a long, long time. I mean, like I said, just different artists would want different things, and then I would expand the kit based on what they wanted. But if they didn't say anything in particular, I would always just play a 4-piece. I learned to get real comfortable. The 5-piece is how I started, but I never could find the perfect spot for the ride, and that I would always get in the way of that other tom. So I like my ride a little closer. So if you see me playing anywhere, it's almost always, even like in a clinic or something, it's almost always going to be a 22-inch kick drum, a 5x14 or 6.5x14 metal snare, a 10-inch. I always play a 10-inch tom, and then a 16-inch floor tom that's mounted on the stand, because I could do it at an angle. And that's pretty much my setup. Now, if I'm doing something in the studio, then, of course, I would have more toms for a variety. But just if I'm playing live, it's pretty minimal, and then it's a couple of crashes and a ride and the hi-hats. And, like I said, I played bigger kits. Like when I used to tour with Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons, he wanted a bit of a bigger kit. So I had like two rack toms and 2 floor toms, kind of like Steve Gadd style. And with Bobby Brown, I had a huge kit with the cage, back in those days. And then Lenny Kravitz, he's the only guy who had me get a double bass drum. I'm not a double bass player, but he wanted a really sort of a rock and roll Keith Moon look. So on some tours with him, I had like 2 bass drums and 3 toms in the middle, kind of Keith Moon style. So I played a variety of setups. I'm always there really just to serve whatever the artist wants. I played with a variety of artists, and they all want something different. So I never get locked in or pinned into anything for myself. Right. Except if I'm doing something that's just me, then I play what I want.
Let me ask you this question. One of the listeners was writing in just now. They wanted to know, going to Lenny Kravitz, and by the way, you saw Lenny, if you didn't see him on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he did a tribute to Prince, man, and Lenny's getting his dreads back, man. He's got that vibe again. And if anybody's going to do a tribute to Prince, that was one man who did it, definitely did it in honor. And so the question was, when your tenure of touring with Lenny, how many drummers went through? We know Cindy Blackman Santana, and yourself. Who else sat there and adorned that drum set?
I only know Cindy and I. There was another guy he had after me, after her, and his name evades me at the moment. But I think from what I remember, I think there's only been 3. I was his original drummer, and then of course I went back to him in between different things, and then Cindy was after me, and then this other guy that he's had. So I really think he's only had 3 that I can think of.
During that time with him, was my buddy Karl Denson playing with you at the time?
Yes, Karl and I, in fact, I just talked to Karl the other day. We hadn't talked in a long time. Karl was with me in the original band with Lenny. So we did concert tours all over the world together. And then it was actually when we were on tour with Lenny in Germany that Karl met a guy from like a record label in Germany that he then pursued that relationship and eventually came out with his first solo album, was with this guy in Germany that he met while we were on tour with Lenny. And that's where eventually Karl went and started to do his own thing, and then I went to tour with a French star after Lenny named Vanessa Paradis, who was Johnny Depp's wife for like 20 years. And in France, she was a huge, tremendous pop star. So I went to go work with her for a couple of years all around the world and mostly in French-speaking countries. And Karl began working on his first solo album, which he eventually did his whole Grey Star, I forget the name of his different bands, but he kind of was in that jam band scene. Yeah, but Karl was in the group with me, as well as a guy named Butch Thomas, who eventually went to work with Sting. He used to play in Jaco Pastorius' band, and we had some great players. The bass player used to play with Curtis Mayfield, so we had nothing but incredible musicians when we were together with Lenny.
When you were playing with Lenny, what hits were on the radio at the time that you were sitting in that drum stop? Was the majority of the hits that you were already on is what was on the radio when you were playing with him?
Yeah, I mean he had like It Ain't Over Till It's Over, Mama Said, Let Love Rule, all that stuff. And then he had the stuff later when I came back that he had like Fly Away and all that stuff. But Lenny's also a drummer too,
right.
And we met on the lawn at Beverly Hills High School in 1980. I actually had graduated high school already in Eugene, Oregon. My senior year, I graduated in Eugene, Oregon. I joined a local band in Eugene. They were called the Robel Brothers. This was straight out of high school. They were my first professional working band. I auditioned right after high school was over, and they were the only kind of real pro group working around in my town that worked all over the state of Oregon. So anyway, they wound up down in California to audition for Disneyland, the house gig there in the Tomorrowland Terrace. Mm-hmm. They didn't get the job, but that brought me back to L.A., and within a couple months, the band starting to fall apart because there's not enough work. Anyway, fate took me to Beverly Hills, and I didn't really know what to do. I'd only been playing drums for a couple of years or a year and a half, and I didn't feel like I could go hang out at UCLA. It's too big. So I was in Beverly Hills, and I thought, you know what? So I went to the lawn of Beverly Hills High School, and I actually just pretended to be a new student there. And I brought my boom box, my ghetto blaster. I was cranking some Earth, Wind & Fire. I had my pimped out hat, a silk shirt, sunglasses, the practice padded sticks, and I just sat on the lawn at lunchtime jamming on the drum pad. And within about 5 minutes, a kid comes up to me whose name is Kinney, and then we became friends. And then Lenny comes up to me like 5 minutes later, and Lenny becomes Lenny Kravitz. Kinney was Kenny Gordy, Barry Gordy's son, the founder of Motown. And I started showing up to the school every single day, so everybody thought that I went to school there. And I started playing it. Yeah.
Zoro, I'm gonna bounce in here, brother. There's that clock. I'm having such a good time. I wasn't even paying attention. Let's pick that up on segment number 3. I'm amazed. I'm intrigued right now, and so are the listeners. So with that said, guys, don't go anywhere. Jackie's Groove with my in-studio guest, the infamous Zoro. Don't go anywhere, kids. We'll be right back after a short break.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on EnterTalkRadio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Tony Lindsay, lead vocalist with Santana, and you're listening to Jackie's Groove with Jackie Bertone.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertone.
Everybody, welcome back to segment number 3. It's blowing by at rocket ship speed, guys. And there's a reason why, because we've got a lot to talk about with my in-studio guest, the worldwide and critically acclaimed drummer / author. We'll talk more about that. Please welcome back to Jackie's Groove, Zoro. Zoro, hey, brother, you and I were chopping it up on the break just now, but I got to ask a question before we get back into that. Talk to me about that little bit of a Zydeco Groove we just heard just now. Share it with us.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a groove from the Meters called Hey Pocky Way, which is kind of steeped in that what they call the second line tradition of drumming in New Orleans. And I've always loved, the Meters and anything from New Orleans. So many drum roads always lead back to those New Orleans grooves. So I wanted to cover that. I used to do that song in my clinic a lot, and I would use it to kind of demonstrate that feel and then kind of blow over it a little bit. And so I decided to record that as well. Just, it's nothing like a great tune, man. It's a great tune.
No, man. And I love the tune. I'm sitting here, I'm tapping my feet, and of course to keep it on the legal, and we want to keep these little snippets down to a certain level because this thing called Facebook / YouTube, they kind of like to keep us offline, so we can't go any more than about 10 seconds. So we'll talk more about that music coming in. So if you want to know about that and what what songs that he played with Lenny, I'm looking at this list right now. People wanted to find out about. Not only is your touring drummer with Lenny Kravitz, did you record on any of his albums?
Yeah, I recorded on the Mama Said album.
Cool.
I forgot what I did on there, but that was kind of the beginning era of us was like Let Love Rule and Mama Said. And that's when you were asking me earlier, that's when he was married to Lisa Bonet.
Yes.
And in fact, Lenny, the way that Lenny met Lisa Bonet was through me. In 1985, Lenny is the one who got me an audition. He was no one knew who he was. He was just my buddy Lenny Kravitz. He never got signed until like 1989. So he was just my buddy Lenny, and we did a million things together in L.A. And so in '85, he got me an audition for the New Edition, and he actually auditioned himself as well on the guitar. So we both went down there together with the hopes that we'd be able to do the gig together. As fate would have it, I got the gig and he didn't. And, of course, he used to rib me about it for like 4 or 5 years because he would see me in the magazines every month and go, man, you're in another magazine, man. And his shit hadn't come in yet. He was just chomping at the bit. But anyway, because he got me that gig, I invited him to to one of the concerts when we played at the Universal Amphitheater in here in L.A. in Universal City. So backstage there is where he met Lisa Bonet, and then of course once they clicked, they ended up getting married. So my whole destiny changed because of gigging with the New Edition because of Lenny, and then his whole destiny changed because he got me that gig because that's where he met Lisa Bonet, and then they had a daughter named Zoe who's now a very busy actress. And all that stemmed out of me sitting on the lawn at Beverly Hills High School where I had this encounter with Lenny at 16 years old, and we became friends right away. So it's very serendipitous, and it's very cool how our lives were weaved together for bigger purposes.
And that's so cool. You just mentioned something just now about the Universal Amphitheater, then it became the Gibson Amphitheater, and then, of course, God knows that we needed one more freaking tribute to, Harry Potter, and that's what was torn down. Another great venue gone by the wayside. I started out there when there was no top at the Universal Amphitheater. That's how far back you and I go. But when you brought up the part about meeting backstage, let me just draw a little picture for you and the listeners out there that don't have the benefit of playing at the Universal Amphitheater. You remember when you used to pull in the back lot and those huge doors would open up to expose the back of the stage? You remember that? And then when you walk through that gate, to your left was hospitality. So when you say backstage, you had two backstages per se. You had hospitality meet and greet on the left-hand side, and then you also had in the gallows below the amphitheater. Remember those long hallways? And that's where, that's where we would eat. Yeah, the dressing room, that's where we would eat. And, so many of those great things. And the only thing I didn't like about that club is it was a union club. The union guys that worked there, excuse my French, were absolute assholes. But that's my my take on the Universal Amphitheater. But it's, and as I said before, we talked about this before, you and I have paralleled each other. I know we've never played live on stage. I would remember that because you would definitely be in my bio.
Sure.
And hopefully we will, one of these days, brother boy. We've got so many cool things coming up. In fact, not so much of a spoiler alert, but, the Intertalk Radio, we are now the media for NAMM, National Association of Music Merchants. And this coming NAMM 2018, along with a mutual friend of ours, I just interviewed him, Rob Wallace from Drummers Collective. You know Rob. And we're going to get together, and we're going to do a huge thing there on the floor. We haven't locked in the location yet, but I'm going to do a Drummers Roundtable, and I'd love to have you be part of it, brother. Along with you and JR and Tris and Bowden, whoever's in town at that time. We're going to have the same kind of we're going to have the same kind of a thing you and I are doing right now, but we're going to pose it to all the people. There's going to be a SRO when it comes to that. We got a lot of great feedback from the DW artists and LP artists, so I want to extend the olive branch to you, and our CEO, Florentino, will talk to you more about it as we get more information. So with that said, we're all about promotion.
Man. I'll be there.
Okay, now so going back to Beverly Hills High School, in which you were not a student, you were hanging out. And through that situation, think about, Lenny, his mama, his beautiful mama that we lost, she was one of the greatest actresses, and she also played the part of the mother on The Jeffersons. And that's a lot of people don't realize the fact that Lenny being a biracial individual, mama being black, his father being Jewish, and that's all color lines are broken. But the fact of the matter is, when you were doing the hang with Lenny, was he cool? Was he a little skinny little dude? What was his vibe? Was it in his DNA to be the hipster that he is today?
Yes, from the minute that I met Lenny, he was 16 years old. Lenny was destined for stardom. Lenny was a cat. He already had vision. We did a concert at Beverly. So we meet on the lawn, and we're hanging out every day. Every day I'm at the school. Nobody at the school knows I'm not a student, so I'm reliving my senior year, but without having to do homework. Playing in the school bands at the school. I hide in the practice room during class time, and then when the bell rings, I'm back out with the class hanging out. So I just had the blast of a lifetime because I'm meeting all these new friends of mine. They're all musicians, and we love music. But Lenny and I distinctly, we were on the cover of Modern Drummer magazine together back in 04. I think 04 or 05, maybe 05. Anyway, but we tell the story of we were both always sharing our visions and dreams with each other, but the way we would share them was we would always say, I'm going to be this, I'm going to do that. So I totally vividly remember Lenny at 16, 17 saying, I'm going to be a rock star, and then I would say, I'm going to be a world-renowned drummer and an author and a speaker. And so we would walk down, streets of Beverly Hills, L.A. I would meet up with him in New York City a lot because his mom and them had an apartment in New York, and we would constantly talk about our visions and dreams, not in an arrogant way, but in a sort of a confident way. That reminds me, I think of us in our childhood days. It reminds me of a Mark Twain quote, and his quote was this, and this pretty much sums up me, pretty much sums up Lenny, sums up the guys from Microsoft, Bill Gates and Paul Allen. But the quote is this: all that's needed is confidence and ignorance, and with that, success is assured. Because you have to be just ignorant enough to believe that it's all possible, but yet confident to believe that you can do it. It's not arrogant. It's just you're too young to realize what you're saying is impossible, but, so you're just ignorant enough to believe that it's possible, but you're confident enough as well to go for it. So Lenny was, yes, and he was the kind of guy that every couple months he'd look different. He'd dye his hair green one week, and in fact, that's why he didn't get the New Edition gig, because in '85 when he auditioned for them on guitar, he kind of had a look that wasn't really kind of their look. He was more kind of new wavy, and it kind of didn't fit their vibe, and they didn't quite get it. But he'd always known what. In fact, he turned down several record deals before he finally got the Let Love Rule record deal with Virgin, because he just didn't feel like they were the right thing. So he was confident enough to pass up on something that he didn't feel was the right thing, even though everybody else would have jumped on it. So you could say he sort of had an inner destiny thing. But the fun thing is he actually wrote the foreword to my last book. My previous book was called The Big Gig, Big Picture Thinking for Success. And Lenny wrote the foreword, and he tells the story of how we met on the lawn at Beverly Hills High, and how fate had taken me there, and how destiny, we had an appointment with destiny. He changed my life, I changed his. And it was very cool. And but anyway, yeah, he knew what he was going to be, and he believed it, and worked it.
When was the last time you saw Lenny?
I just actually talked to him. The last time I saw him, I'm trying to think, in Miami somewhere, like maybe a year or so ago. But I just talked to him like last week. I didn't get a chance to see I got to go see the thing that he did with the Prince tribute. Because the funniest thing too is Lenny. Well, Lenny was when I met him, Lenny was a huge Prince freak. At 16, Prince was older than him, and so Lenny was a huge Prince freak. And we did a concert at Beverly Hills High. I mean, this is the kind of kid he was. He was 17 years old, and he had orchestrated a professional concert at the high school. He had me in the band, then he hired all these other professional horn players. It was like a 16, 17-piece band, like 3 background singers, 4 horn players, 3 keyboard players, 2 guitar players. I mean, it was like a big sound. And he put on together this complete professional concert. He had like lights, sound men, and fog machines and limos after the concert, like we were rock stars, and it was an unknown band. But he was able to master. He was 16, and I was 17 and a half. But he had already had the vision, of how to do that. And even though it was a band that nobody knew of, I mean, he had laminated tickets printed, he had a folder, he did interviews. He was on his way. It was just where he was cutting his teeth. So we were both very driven and very vision-oriented and very passionate, so we got along great.
And I'm going to bring this up. I'm just looking at some pictures of Zoro on Google. I say this and I say this wholeheartedly. Thank God Jackie Bertoni, Zoro, Lenny Kravitz, and a lot of our brothers that we don't look like anybody down the street. I know I could never rob a bank, and that's and likewise with you and Lenny and so on. And I crack up about that just because it not being that cookie cutter situation is the reason why we've been so successful here on Jackie's Groove, because we're the only show worldwide that's vetted the fact that is a musician to a musician talking. So we're hitting on points that the average listener is not going to listen to, or the average interviewer is not going to ask. I don't want to know who you slept with. I don't want to know. I mean, it's not my business. I just want to know how you make love to your drums, man, and where your passion, where your lover in life is music. But I do want to step back for a quick second here. Is Zoro? Are you a daddy?
Am I a father? Oh yeah.
Yes. Okay.
That was just, yeah. No, I have an 18-year-old son and a 15-year-old daughter, and I've been married for the last 22 years. So I'm absolutely a father, and I actually consider that my greatest gig and the thing I've enjoyed the most. People always ask me, what's your favorite gig? And I always say, being a father, because as you learned earlier in the broadcast, my father left me for dead. And so for me to be a father was my greatest, that was actually a goal when I was a young boy. I was like, one day I'm going to be a father, and I'm going to be a great one and make up for what I didn't have. And that kind of has been my greatest joy. And then it really is what gave me sort of that mentoring spirit. I've mentored thousands and taught thousands of people and encouraged thousands upon thousands in my lifetime through books, videos, one-on-ones. But it came out of the deficit of what I didn't have. So, no, I love being a dad.
And I asked that question because my wife Caprice and I were going on 34 years of marriage, and but we're not parents by choice. Thank you, but we are godparents 7 times over, and our godchildren run from the age of 10 years old up to 44. And there's just some things that your kids cannot tell mom and dad, and so that's there's not a week that goes by that I don't get phone calls, asking opinions and so on and so forth. And with that said, you've been in the industry as long as you've been. Your babies. They'll always be your babies, regardless. You said 18 and 16. We got 15. The ages 15. Again. Do they
18
get
and
what?
15. Do
they get what Dad does?
I would say they get it as much as any kid gets it. Like, I've hung out with a lot of different celebrities in my life, obviously, and you rub shoulders with many people, and it always amazes me that the sons and daughters of anybody famous, no matter what they've done, they never quite fully get who their father or mother is, and it's to them it's just like mom and dad. I mean, they get, my dad does this, my mom's an actress or whatever. But I think there's something good about that because it keeps those parents humbled, because the kid's just like, he's just dad. I don't care if you're Denzel Washington. I remember seeing Denzel's daughter on the Oscars, and they were interviewing her with her dad, and then she was just like, my dad's just a big dork. And then same thing with Will Smith. He goes, my 15-year-old kids think I'm just a dork. And he goes, I think I'm kind of cool. I think I'm kind of hip. But my kids think I'm dorky. And so I realized every kid thinks that. And so, but there's another side of that too. I call it the curse of familiarity. So sometimes people in your own family that you grew up with, or people that are close to you, don't always get the depth of the magnitude of what you've done or accomplished or achieved, because you're just their little brother. So they still treat you in the same pecking order as when you were 10 and when you were 8, even though you're not anymore and you're accomplished. When people are familiar with you, sometimes they don't, and I'm not saying this in any way, an egotistical way, this happens to all people, but they don't honor you, or they don't respect you as much as a stranger would. And that's everybody. It goes back to that biblical thing, a prophet is not received in his own town. The only place Jesus couldn't perform a miracle is in the town where he grew up, because people couldn't receive because they knew him. Like, oh, he's just Jesus. How good could he be? And the same thing happens in music, I've hung out with a lot of people that were legends that became friends, and then, sometimes you forget, oh my gosh, no, that's so-and-so. He's one of the baddest cats in the world. So you always have to kind of remind yourself, and even though he's my friend and my buddy, we're having sushi, he's one of the world's greatest songwriters or producers or actors or whatever.
Right.
Because when you get familiar with people, you almost forget that.
Zoro, let me bump in real quick. You know what I don't respect? The fact is that damn light is flashing again, and we're coming out of the first hour out of a 2-hour interview. Do you see what I mean by how fast it goes, brother? And I'm gonna pick this up because I'm gonna leave myself a message here. We're talking about family and fame and so on. So with that said, guys, don't go anywhere. I've got Zoro on the line right now, man. This is Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Talk Radio Network. Coming up on segment number 4. Don't go anywhere, kids.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time, or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Al Di Meola, and you're listening to Jackie's Groove with Jackie Bertoni.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Everybody, welcome back to Jackie's Groove. Man, second hour of a 2-hour interview. It's blown by, kids. So what you missed, if you're just tuning in right now, you can go on back onto Intertalk Radio or jackiesgroove.com, and towards the end of the day, and to be able to pick this up on an archive, you don't want to miss the first hour. And if you have, shame on you. So with that said, we're back on with Zoro. Zoro, you're sharing so many great stories, man. And I want to pick this up, so I have to make sure I leave myself a message. Let's go back what we left off a little bit. We talked about, I asked you about, do the kids get what daddy does? And of course, how could they not? But the fact is, and we always laugh about this. And when I say about laughing is that it's pretty freaking cool what we do. I mean, I still to this day, after, getting off the line tonight with Zoro, I'm going to laugh because the fact is I'm a fan of yours and we're musical brothers, but I still think it's a very cool situation. We talked about earlier when you're idolizing certain groups, and all of a sudden, fast forward 20 years later, you're now on stage with these people. But the fact of the matter is, with the foundation of family, your babies, your wife, and so on, yeah, they're all impressed. They know what dad does, especially your better half. And I learned they use the term better half. That's the wife. And you know what? And my wife, Capri, she's my humbler, my grounder. And because the bottom line is, in our industry, Zoro, I'm not afraid to admit, and I really don't choose to like it anymore. I did when I was younger. But, people are paid to put their noses up our rear ends. I mean, that's what they do. And we're old enough to realize the fact that that's what they're getting paid to do. So I always ask a lot of people, a lot of my, my heavy hitters, where's the favorite place to tour in the world? Where's your favorite city? And where's your favorite place to travel to? And it seems like 95% of them said, our favorite place to travel to is home. There's no place like home without red shoes clicking them. And when you get home, and Zoro gets home off these great tours, you're no longer Zoro, man. You're Hey You. Mm-hmm. The dog poop needs to be picked up. You need to do this. And then it takes me a couple days to go like, well, can I just call some? No, you can't. And so that's the, that's the cool thing about that, that relation. It's like, one of my closest friends in the world is my good friend of mine, Carney Wilson from Wilson Phillips, and Carney Wilson's dad is Brian Wilson. So when you're around that kind of fame growing up, like I was talking to Herman Matthews on Wednesday, it's like with all of his years with Kenny Loggins, with all of his years, with currently with Tower of Power. And everybody was Uncle Kenny. You know, they didn't know who he was and so on and so forth. But when you have your kids around, I mean, unless they're the Ariana Grandes right now or the Britneys or whatever, do they know who those famous people are, and do they really care?
Well, like, I'll give you an example. Like, my kids call Lenny Kravitz Uncle Lenny because they've known him since they were born.
Right.
And, you know, as kids, they never really knew who he was, except he's just Uncle Lenny, his daddy's friend. Right. And, but to show you how sweet he is, when I took my daughter to Paris when she was like 11, so it'd be like 4 years ago, just a daddy-daughter trip. It was just me and her. She'd always wanted to go, and I thought, you know, this is the right age. She'll never forget this trip. She's not 5, but she's not 16, where she probably doesn't want to go anymore. Right age. And so I took her there, and we called Uncle Lenny, who lives in Paris, and he wasn't in town, but he called his driver, and he arranged for his driver to pick us up and take us to Disneyland, Paris, and he arranged for us to get special thing where the special star treatment where you don't have to wait in any lines, which I've never had that happen ever. So it was just so awesome. And then when we left there, he sent the driver to take us to go to the ballet, because my little girl was doing ballet at the time, and I took her to the Paris Opera House, you know, to see ballet. It was just really cool, and she's got a great relationship with him. So any of the people that I played with, I recently saw Frankie Valli was in Nashville, and I was in Nashville with my kids, invited us to the concert. And the first thing he says when he comes backstage is like, "Where's the kids? I want to see your kids," you know. He was totally, and he spent a lot of time talking to my kids, encouraging them. And so I just think, you know, I try to tell them, so you're getting some incredible advice here from like a guy who's been an icon in music for 60 years, you know. You guys, I don't know if you appreciate this, but, you know, the advice he's given you is coming from a man who's just been mega successful, and he's pouring time into you. So that's some of the cool things about doing what I do is, you know, my kids have gotten to meet a lot of, you know, very important people in different walks of life, but they've treated them really kindly, so that was always cool. But, yeah, I love being a family man. I love being a husband. I love being a dad. Those, you know, to me, you know, when your life is over, the most important thing will be the people you affected in your own home. And really, with what I do, it's a privilege to do what I do around the world as a drummer, as a speaker, as a teacher, as an author. But I really only have one goal with all of this, and the goal is to impact as many people's lives positively as humanly possible with my lifespan. So I always tell people, you know, the question to ask yourself is, whose life got better because you lived? It's not about, my journey has never really been about me. It might have started off that way when I was a young kid, but as I matured, I realized this is about impacting and affecting people. I have a platform. Anybody who has a certain level of success or fame or whatever has a bit of a platform, but everybody's got a platform. So the question is, it's not about like, oh, I got to do this. The importance of me living out my dream is the amount of people that I'm going to impact, that I can impact positively by living out that dream. If it's just a journey of self, then eventually you self-implode, or self-centered people are never happy. But I always saw it as a journey of service, starting first with my family and then people. So when I travel through the airports and, you know, somebody recognizes me, whether they're young or old, I always travel with an extra pair of my big first signature drumsticks. I always have autographed cards. I have things to give away, but I'm mostly giving my heart and my time away. And I want that encounter to be a positive one. I was fortunate that when I was 18, shortly after I met Lenny, and I might have been still 17, shortly after I met Lenny at Beverly Hills High and we became friends, I was walking down Rodeo Drive, and lo and behold, I see the drum god. I see Buddy Rich. And at that point, I'd seen him many times on The Tonight Show, but my mother used to always say, you know, one day, son, you're going to meet Buddy Rich. I just know it. And so all of a sudden, I see Buddy Rich, and I reach my hand out to say, I said, Buddy Rich. And he reaches his hand out, and he goes, absolutely right. And I just kind of like marvel at him. I'm looking at him, and I say, wow, Buddy. So my mother said I would get to meet you one day. She told me I was going to meet you. And he goes, I remember what he said. He goes, always listen to your moms. Moms are always right, son. And so we talked for the next 20 minutes. He was standing outside of Vidal Sassoon waiting for his wife and daughter to get their hair done. And I just
Kathy?
caught him at the right moment. Kathy. He gave me his autograph. He gave me his address. I said, "Can I send a cassette tape of myself so you can hear me?" I was ignorant. I had no idea he was never going to listen to it. But he was kind, and I had a great encounter with him, and I had the same sort of encounter, around that same time period. I'm up at Barry Gordy's house because remember I met Kenny Gordy on the lawn of Beverly Hills High. The same time I met Lenny Kravitz. Right. So all of a sudden I become Kenny's friend. He's taking me up to his dad's house in Bel Air. Barry's the founder of Motown, the greatest record label of all time. So I'm up there playing pinball machines up in his front room, and I'm watching two Rolls Royces pull up from the side of the driveway. I could see two Rolls Royces pull up. The doorbell rings. Nobody's there but me in the front room. And I go to answer the door, and it's Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5.
Jesus.
And now I'm 17 years old. I'm holding court by myself for 20 minutes with Michael Jackson and Jackson 5. And I remember trying to talk them into jamming with me in the music room. And Michael got a kick out of it. He was like, "Okay, you got a lot of heart. You got a lot of spirit. I like you." And I just so I had these encounters with legendary people that were positive, and they impacted my life forever. And anybody, so the purpose of the platform of the gift that God gives you, the gift of music, is so you can touch people's lives. You touch them first with the music or whatever your art is. In my case, I'm a speaker and an author and a teacher and a musician. You touch them with that first, but then the real way you touch them is personally, because you could be a super famous drummer, but be so arrogant that you never have time to give anybody when they meet you, or when they meet you, it's a negative encounter. And so I go, man, that's a total misuse of a beautiful platform that you could have really touched a kid's life, because it's the one-on-one encounters that really show who a person is. Because if you have a gift for drumming, which you do and I do, well, guess what? It's a gift, which means I did not give myself drumming ability, nor did you. We were born with it. We did something with it. We developed it. We turned it into something. But in essence, it was a free gift. So I don't get a bonus because I'm some great drummer. Where you get a reward is that, yes, the gift was free, but the character I developed by serving people, by inspiring people, by encouraging people, that's the thing. That's the takeaway. Because in the end, a great speaker or a great orator is great because they're good at it. But when they walk off stage, are you a jackass? Are you full of yourself? Do you have to hide in the green room because you don't want to meet people? Or you don't have a minute to take a picture or to be kind? Because anybody who can speak in a positive, empowering message. It doesn't mean you are that person. And anybody who plays drums great can be a great drummer, but it doesn't mean you're a nice guy.
Right. And you know how I use my fame and my celebrity, for the lack of a better word? People in the industry know that I was 21 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I live a normal life to a certain point. I'm slower on some areas and so on. But you know what? It's that old cliche, but it's a great cliche if I can help just one person. So when I give these speeches, of course, people are going to come to see that, along with my friend Terry Garr, the great actress, and so on. And I've got coming on the show, I think, if Megan, my producer, is going to let me know today, I got Sadea Garrett coming on, man. And she's one of the greatest writers. She wrote Man in the Mirror. The hits go down the line. But the thing about it, oddly enough, is that Sadea was just diagnosed with multiple sclerosis herself. So we're going to have a lot of talk about that, man, because she's new to this disease, if you will. And again, too, with me helping her out and putting our best foot forward to help people out there that don't understand the disease, understand that it's not a death sentence, but again, if we can raise the hopes of one person through your drumming, through your books, which we'll talk about next segment, and me through how MS and music has brought me through my MS. Again, this is what we're here for. And I always say to my wife, when somebody walks up to me, Zoro, they say, "Hey, man, I really enjoy your playing, this, that, and the other." And I always say, "Thank you very much. Who did you see me playing with?" Then when they walk away, I give them a hug or I give them a handshake. And I look at my wife, I go, "Was I cool?" And my wife goes, "Sweetheart, trust me, when you're not cool, I'll let you know." And so, because we both had a lot of encounters. I'll tell you right up front, the first time I ever met David Crosby, I was working with Tower Power. I just happened to see a good friend of mine, Tom Rohde, the percussionist, God rest his soul, with
I know Tom, yeah.
Yeah, man, and at Caesar's Palace. And so I was getting ready to go for our second show. We were opening up for Santana at the Theater Performing Arts at the Aladdin Hotel. So I'm I walk backstage, I'm walking out, and there's David Crosby standing in front of me. I walk up to David, and I said, David, and, I'm naive, I'm 19 years old, but I didn't think my poop didn't stink because I'm working with Tower of Power at the time, and he looks up at me, Zoro, looks right in my eyes, he goes, no autographs. And all of a sudden, I looked at him, I said, well, it's okay because I'm not signing any. And so as I walk away, and I walked away, and Tom said to me, or said to him, he goes, that's Jackie Bertoni, he's the percussionist for Tower of Power. And then he walked up and he goes, hey, man, I'm so sorry. And I said, okay, well, that's good, but, wow. So I ran into David, years ago at the Love Ride, because Jay Leno and all of us, we ride Harley Davidsons. And I had told him about the story. And he goes, yeah, well, that was the old asshole. I never do that anymore. And I say, I know. And he goes, but thank you for bringing that up. He goes, and trust me, you weren't the first one to bring that up. And he goes, and who knows what substance I was on at that time. And I said, well, if asshole, and I told him, I said, if asshole came in a pill, you were definitely on that pill. And he laughed and gave me the big, and he gave me a big hug. So with that said, that's the grounding of everything itself. I know you. I mean, because look, I see you, and I always say to myself, this cat got a cool look about himself. You got that vibe. Again, as I said earlier, we could never rob a bank. So when you look in the mirror, you know what you've accomplished. But when you look in the mirror, and I hate using that term, he reinvented himself. Are you secure in your own shoes? Are you happy in the body that you possess?
Absolutely. I'm beyond happy. I'm grateful. I find that if you live with gratitude, you become less insecure. If sure, there's always things we all wish we could do more of, or have more of, or have been more of, or everybody, we're all born to dream. So there's nobody who wakes up in the morning and goes, gosh, I can't wait to be a loser. I can't wait for things not to work out in my life or to be ugly. Or, nobody thinks that. So there's always more that we want in life, more we wish we could have done. But the bottom line is, if you remain grateful for everything that you have, and because I grew up so little, I'm still pinching myself that I've got to do all that I've got to do. I mean, I've so blessed in numerous ways, and not just things that I've been able to accomplish, like career-wise, but just in my life with my wife and my children, and the friends that I have, the people who believed in me, the people who've invested in me and sown in me and took chances on me. So when you're humble and when you're grateful, what ensues is happiness and contentment, as opposed to, again, I've never met a self-centered person who is ever happy, because when life revolves around you, you're not grateful. You're always looking at the world from the glass half empty, like, gosh, people should have done this for me. I could have had that. Why aren't they doing this? And I don't find any peace in there. I find the joy and the peace in when you're just grateful for, where you're at you're alive. So, when I look in the mirror, metaphorically, I'm super content and happy with everything. Again, I'm dreaming for the things that I'm dreaming for in the future are dreams that would impact and affect more other people. So they're not so much like personal things like, what can benefit me, but I want to have a bigger impact on the world through my books and through my speaking and the things that I'm teaching and imparting. And so it's not so much, oh, gee, if I could get this one gig or whatever. I'm past that in the stage of my life. It's more like I want to get out of this planet knowing that I've impacted more and more people. So, how can I do that?
Brother, let's do this. Listen, we're coming out of segment number 4 and number 5. I want to pick that up I want to talk about more of the musical experiences you had, and, of course, your new books, or your new book, I should say, in the previous one. So with that said, guys, don't go anywhere. Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, Zoro. Don't go anywhere. Segment number 5, right around the corner. Don't go away.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on intertalkradio.com.
Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
All I can say on that one is welcome to the Church of Jackie's Groove. I got to tell you, man, I'm having a blast right now. This is segment number 5. We're almost done, man. One segment after this with this incredible 2-hour interview with my in-studio guest, this iconic R&B funk drummer, chameleon drummer by the name of Zoro. Zoro, welcome back, brother. You know, I got to take a couple seconds here. I want to thank our sponsors. These are the people that keep this crazy ship afloat called Intertalk Radio. And I want to say hi to Calvin Lee and all of our dear friends at Pitbull Audio. Well, you can reach them at pitbullaudio.com, where their motto is they just want you to play it loud, one of our biggest supporters. And also I want to say hello to all of our friends, of course, at DW Drums, and that's including Mr. John Good, Mr. Don Lombardi. Reach them at dwdrums.com. They're one of our greatest supporters. Also, people I'm biased to, Vader Percussion, my drumstick of choice for the past 23 years. Sabian Cymbals, SABIAN.com. That's Zoro's and my taste of drum cymbals. I'm going on 22 years with them. And then, of course, people I'm most biased to, and that is called LP Music. I've been with LP Music going on 27 years. You can reach them at lpmusic.com. To my friends Derek Zimmerman, Jerry Zacharias, and Terry Thalapia, thank you guys so much for your belief. So with that said, guys, welcome back. Hey, Zoro, now that business is done, let's pick this up. You know, you said something in that, and it was very, very cool. We're talking about just being around and being humble, or being around people who are very, very famous. I want to share a short story before we pick this up. Back in the day, for the lack of a better term, 1980, I was 20 years old, and Emilio Castillo, my mentor, the founder of Tower of Power, his wife Thelma at the time, she was Al McKay's children's nanny. Talk about a weird correlation there. So Mimi had asked me after he had to do some publicity, and he said, "Hey, do me a favor, could you go pick up Thelma at Al's house?" And I said, "Al who?" And he goes, "Al McKay." And I go, "Really?" So I don't know if you knew Al back that far, but Al had this mansion up on Franklin above Sunset. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, it was Los Feliz.
Yep. And I walked into this house. I had to use the bathroom. So Al said, just go down the hall and blah, 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 blah. Well, I look over to my left. There's this fireplace hearth. And let me tell you, Zoro, I never saw more American Music Awards, more Grammys, more of everything, just everywhere. And then when I walked into the guest bathroom, there were platinum albums on the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came out, Al with his big smile, he goes, "Too much?" ? And I said, "Please trust me. I'd have them. If this was me, no, not too much." And I'm sitting in the house of Earth, Wind, and Fire, and that's what's amazing. So I'm going to ask you. Again, I'm not going to obligate you, but when you talk to Al, it's been years since he and I spoke together. If you can put the olive branch out there and tell him I would love to interview him. I've interviewed all the current Earth, Wind, and Fire guys. I want to talk to the man. So if you would do me a favor and put that out there.
Yeah, no problem. And I was in that same house you're talking about, the same house. I could visualize everything you were saying because I used to go to that house in Los Feliz, to his house to practice and jam. So I could totally visualize everything you're saying. But, I'd be happy to tell him.
Now, let me just step back here. Thank you, brother. And, we talked about Lenny. We talked about New Edition. We talked about Bobby Brown. But let's talk, and we talked about Philip and Frankie Valli. But I'm curious to find out, talk to me about the beautiful woman that we lost, soulful white woman by the name of Tina Marie. When did you work with her and in what capacity?
Well, I actually never worked with Tina. I only knew her. And actually, she actually... but we did a lot of stuff together. We did a lot of dates together when I was with those other groups. When I was with the New Edition and Bobby, we did many festivals and all those, concert tours together. But she actually was one of his strongest mentors and really took him under her wing. Tina had a direct impact on Lenny Kravitz. And Tina, when Lenny was just kind of a scuffling young musician, when I had the New Edition gig and his ship hadn't come in yet, and he was just struggling, even younger when he was 17, 18, 19 years old, he used to crash out at her pad. She just took him under her wing. And so, she was a wonderful, I loved her music, man. I remember in 1980, I was digging on the whole... before Square Biz, the other tune that she had, I Need Your Lovin', when that was playing on the radio all the time, like in '80. And then, eventually we would hang out at all the concert tours backstage. But no, I didn't record with her, but she would be somebody that I would say was a colleague friend. But she did have a direct impact on my friend Lenny because she put him up when he was living out of his car and stuff. And so he was always very grateful to her in his career and always cited her as one of the people who really went out of her way to love on him, which just goes to show, you never know the person who's down and out right now that you're lending a helping hand to. One day they're the person who's, reigning and ruling 5-10 years later. It's funny too with the Prince thing. I remember Lenny was so into Prince when he was a kid. And then I remember us walking down Fifth Avenue when he was already a big, huge star, and we were doing like the baptism tour. And he said, well, Prince is calling me every 5 minutes. And it was funny because he was like, "Oh man, he's calling me, bugging me, wants us to do this New Year's Eve concert with him." I go, "I'll call him back later." And I just laughed. I said, "Dude, I remember when when he picked you up in a limo when you were like just getting started, because Prince used to come to all of our shows, And he goes, you would have just beside yourself if he gave you 3 minutes. Now he's calling you, and you're kind of the big cheese. And all of a sudden you're like, he's been bugging me every 5 minutes about this New Year's Eve special." So, it all comes full circle. Those of us that are kids now, later will be the reigning and ruling people on the charts. And so it's a good rule to just love on everybody, because I have literally had students that I mentored and loved on and helped and devoted myself to, that years later they'd be in some key critical position where they're helping me somewhere in the business. They've rose up, and all of a sudden they're either turning me on to a gig or they're working at some corporation. They open up a door for me, and they remember, hey, Z, spent time with me. He gave me this, he gave me that. He spent time, he encouraged me. And so it's just a good golden rule to be nice to everybody, and not for something that you gain, but just to be nice. But the result of that is sometimes the people that you give time and attention to go on to become geniuses. And they remember that.
Yeah, and my mom always taught me one thing, and I'm thankful for this. My mom said the same asses that you step on the way up are the same asses you're going to have to kiss on the way down.
Absolutely.
And she said, and she goes, and so I learned, I wasn't always humble, man. When you're 19 years old and you're working with the prominent funk band, you think your poop doesn't stink, man. But there's people out there that tell you that your poop does stink. I learned that. I learned that growing up. Emilio Castillo told me a long time ago. The less people you tell who you are and what you're doing, are the less hassles you're going to have to deal with. And I relate to that because more times than not, I'll be at a club listening to a band, and the manager will say, "Hey, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming to the club. But we knew you were a musician, but we didn't know," and they use the quote marks, "we didn't know you were a musician." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that." And I said, "But what do you mean?" They said, "Well, we were on your website, and we were on this, that, and the other. We didn't realize that you were so famous." And I said, "My friends, let me just tell you something. I'm a hired grunt. The people I'm working with are the who's who of the industry. They don't have attitudes. Why in God's name would I have an attitude? It's destructive,
right.
And I learned that, and I'm just going to reach out one last time because I got one more note here. With the same thing, not working with Tina directly musically, but how about my other, and all respect to your wife and to my wife, but my heartthrob back in the 80s was a girl by the name of Jody Watley. What did you do with this one? What did you do with this girl?
Well, Jody, I did work with, and she was a lovely, lovely woman. And I toured with her and did a bunch of TV shows with her, and I was a big, huge, for those that are listening that don't know, Jody Watley was a very prominent R&B singer in the 80s and 90s, and she was out of a group called Shalimar, and with Howard Hewitt. And I love Shalimar. I almost had worked with Howard, too. He called me for something, and then it didn't work out. But I loved Shalimar. I was a big Shalimar fan. And when somebody called me, Jody was going on tour, and they called me and said, you want to come down and audition for this thing? I said, I'd love to. And this was, after Bobby Brown, after New Edition, after all those other people. So I had more of a name already by that point. But I auditioned, and she liked me right away. And she goes, I want the guy with the hat. And so I felt very honored that she liked me. And we became friends on the tour, and she was just always really sweet. I dug her in, like I said, we did all the different TV shows, and there's stuff on YouTube of me playing with her, I think on the Arsenio Hall show.
I've seen it. I've seen it, brothers.
Yeah, and it was funky music.
With Jody, I look back at it because one of my favorite videos, where she was wearing that really frilly dress in a song called "I'm Looking for a New Love, Baby." That whole vibe.
Sure.
And because back then we had did a show with her, and this is probably where you and I crossed paths. I was working with a small group. I say this with tongue in cheek. In 1991, a gentleman by the name of Stevie B. And when I left Stevie B, I went on to work with a group called CNC Music Factory. And we were on this huge tour with CNC's headlighting Stevie B, Timothy T, and a guy by the name of Gerardo. And this was at the time during the debacle of Milli Vanilli, and we had to put on and this was at the last gig was at the Universal Amphitheater, but on all of the advertising in the calendar section, which we have out here in LA Times, we had to put a thing called Live to Track. And we had to let people know that even though we were playing live, there were still backtracks. So we had to get that feel of strings and horns that weren't there and so on. So with that said, and going back to yesteryear, let's step forward for a second here, and I want to ask you this question. I'm kind of in the quandary there, and I'm going to put this down for the people out there listening. You and I being the same age, you and I have been on the stages since we were kids. Now let's talk about today and let's talk about yesterday. When Zoro walks on stage, regardless of what the venue is, but if it's a larger venue, are you still old school? Do you still, as a drummer, prefer a wedge, or are you more of an in-air kind of a cat?
I love real wedges, and especially but I do have in-ears and I do use them, but I like having the real wedges for like the low end. I do not I don't enjoy all of those devices that simulate the low end on your seat. I mean, they're great for what they do. I prefer that air blowing through the back of my head with two, like 4 sets of 18s back there where you just barely tap the bass drum and you feel it. I still love real speakers, and I don't dig all the clear sonic panel things that turn into a fishbowl. I mean, they serve their purpose, and they isolate sounds, but they also make you feel completely separate from the band. So I'm definitely old school. I like to be close to the band. I like to not be far apart. I don't want to feel like I'm in some contained bubble, and I don't I don't want just the in-ears. I prefer, even when I have in-ears, I still want real monitors behind me, and I'll pop one of the in-ears halfway out so I can still feel some of the live ambience.
You know, and I love that fact. What don't you want to hear in your monitor?
I mean, I actually, it's weird. I hear guys say, I only want this, I only want that. I actually like a little mix of the whole band. I want to feel like I'm playing a record, and so I have a little bit of everything in there because I want to know when the background vocals are coming in. I want to hear when those horn stabs are coming in. I like a little mixture of everything, and myself mixed just a little under it because, I'm playing with these people. That's just me. Other people are different. You're like, well, why would I not want to hear some of the people I'm playing with? But, because I have to hear everything in its entirety for it to all make musical sense to me. But I kind of like it like I'm listening to a CD. It's not overly cranked super loud. But there's a nice mixture of everybody in there so I can see what I'm doing in context with everybody else. But I know every cat's different that way, so that's totally fine.
Let me ask you this question. I think it's a very, very pertinent question. I ask everybody, and I get such a great slice of different answers. Let me ask you this question. If Zoro wasn't playing music today, what would Zoro be doing?
I would be doing the other things that I'm already doing today, which is mentoring, speaking, and writing. I have really fallen in love with writing books. That medium has captured my heart for many years now, and I wrote 4 drum books that were all part of the Commandments of R&B Drumming series. Then about 5 years ago, I came out with a 440-page motivational book for musicians called The Big Gig, Big Picture Thinking for Success. And then most recently, just this past fall that just came out, it's a book called SOAR, S-O-A-R, 9 Proven Keys for Unlocking Your Limitless Potential. It's a book about how to live out your dream, how to discover your gift, how to develop it, and how to deploy it, which is the reason we're here. But I have fallen in love with the art form of writing and storytelling because I have so many stories in my life. And so, but I look back into my life, and at 10 or 11 years old, I wanted to write a book about camping, even though I had never been camping. I wanted to go camping so bad, and I had never gone, but I started checking out every book in the library about camping. And I was only 11, but I actually started writing. So it's funny, some of the gifts that we have, we discover them later in age, but when you look back in your life, the DNA for them was always there. So a writer in me was always there. When I first started touring with the New Edition, I started writing articles in all the fan magazines. And I remember I wrote an article in '85 called Zoro's Show Business Tips. And I can trace my 440-page Big Gig book that came out a few years ago back to that article. Some of the core elements of what eventually became the book started from that article. So writing was always in me, but if I weren't drumming at all, I love writing and I love speaking. I do a lot of motivational speaking. I always incorporate my drums and my music with it because it's part of my story. But I really love doing that. I love sharing stories that empower people, that inspire people, that cause people to walk out their dream through the stories of my dream and how my dream came to pass. And
what we're going to do? What we're going to do, Zoro, I'm going to interrupt you here. We're going to do this on segment number 6. We're going to be segment number 6. We're going to dedicate it to everything about Zoro and how to patronize you, brother. How to put some ducats in your pocket and where to find all of the books that you are responsible for penning. So with that said, when we come back on the last segment, can you believe it, brother? 2 hours is almost gone.
I can't.
Yeah, man, that's the beauty of the show, man. So when we get back, this is Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, talking to Zoro. Brought to you all by the Intertalk Radio Network. You're into all things music. Segment number 6 coming in, last of the 2 hours. We're going to reel it all in. Don't go anywhere, guys. Hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on intertalkradio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Tony Lindsay, lead vocalist with Santana, and you're listening to Jackie's Groove with Jackie Bertone.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertone.
Rock and roll at its finest, my brothers. Segment number 6, Jackie's Groove. This is Jackie Bertone, brought to you by the Intertalk Radio Network. You're into all things music. Zoro, welcome back, brother. Who was that we just heard?
That was I was playing with a cat named Lincoln Brewster and a bass player named Norm Stockton, and we've done a bunch of concerts together. Lincoln is a very accomplished worship musician out of a big church in Sacramento called Bayside. He's written a lot of sort of hit Christian tunes, and it was from a concert we did, from a live show we did. And, yeah, everybody sort of in that Christian worship world knows who Lincoln Brewster is. He's kind of big in that market. But that was a concert I did with him.
I'm digging it. I was waiting to hear Lenny's voice. I kind of very Lenny Kravitz type of a sound. I was waiting for Lenny to be belting it out in the background. That's why I had to ask about that song. Hey, man, I asked you a question on the break, and wanted to ask this too because a couple listeners wanted to ask that question. Somebody referred back to an interview I did with J.R. Robinson, one of the most recorded drummers in history, last year on my show. And I asked J.R. because I personally, when someone sends me tracks, when studios send me tracks, I hate the click track. I mean, that's just me as a percussionist. I don't like it, so they pull it out of the mix. So with that question said, I asked J.R. if he liked and preferred the click track, and J.R. said to me, and I quote him, "I would marry the click track if I could," unquote. So with that said, does Zoro respect or does he not like the click track?
I have no problem with it. It's a useful tool. I've played many, many gigs and many recording sessions and live tours, the entire tour with a live click track with no problem. It is limiting in the sense that if you think of a lot of the music from this, starting from the 70s backwards, because the click started at a certain era, some of the greatest music ever made was made before the click track. So I think of music like this. Here's my analogy. music is a rubber band. It is not a brick. A rubber band has ebb and flow to it. It bends, it moves. Music is a palm tree, not an oak tree. An oak tree is stiff. When a storm comes, the wind blows, it cracks. But a palm tree is supple, and it flows. So I think all great music has a natural ebb and flow to it, where great musicians have great time. But there aren't any perfect human beings where if you have an orchestra of 100 people, not every single person has perfect time at the same exact time, but they have excellent time. But that doesn't stop them from making incredible music. If you analyze like the music of Motown, you can put a click track on the beginning of the tune and at the end of the tune, you'll find that the tempo has changed. But the emotion is so strong and it's powerful. And I'll give you an example. When I recorded that song that you played earlier, Jupiter by Earth, Wind & Fire, I recorded that with Al McKay. We recorded it together. And when we got to the bridge of that song, we had the click because I recorded that song from my instructional video. And so in order for me to play it live on the instructional video, I had to record it with a click. I recorded the whole band with a click so we could all lock it in. Then later I would take my drum track, erase it, and now I would play it live on video on the camera so that you're seeing me play the actual tune. But when we got to the bridge of that, the modulation, in the studio, Al McKay was like, God, it's not happening. Why is this not feeling good? And we were trying to figure it out. I'm like, well, we got the click. We're locking down everything. It's perfect. Yeah, just not feeling right. So we went back and listened to the Earth, Wind & Fire original recording that he played on from the All in All album, and we put the click track on it, and we realized they were racing away. When they got to that modulation, they kept going those higher chords, they didn't play it to a click. They naturally sped up because they got excited. It wasn't like they were trying to make it faster, but it was just what happens when you play chords that are more exciting, is you just a little bit of natural rushing. But it felt so good on the record that it is what it was. And when we played it and we did it with the click, it just did not feel so exciting. So I'm not against the click or for the click. It has its purpose in certain kind of venues and settings. It's necessary. But like certain styles don't lend itself to it as well. For instance, Buddy Rich would have never played to a click track. But contemporary R&B, that's the way the style is. That's what you play to. Classic rock and roll, Led Zeppelin would have never played to a click track. And yet people still love those records or those Beatles records. So there's a difference between good time and perfect time. And perfect doesn't always mean emotionally responsive. Something could be, there are drummers that are technically perfect, but they fail to make me move because I'm not feeling the passion. People are not moved by precision. They're moved by passion. And so to me, it's just a tool. I'm not against it or for it. But I wouldn't say everything in the world has to be cut with a click track or it's not going to be happening, because that's not true. Most of recorded music from the time recordings were happening were pre-click, and it's still music that moves people's souls all around the world. And also, there's great music that has been recorded with a click that I also dig just as much. So it's not an either or for me. I'm just flexible, and when somebody wants me to record with a click or do it live, then I do. If they don't, we're still going to slam, because we're good musicians and we keep good time. It may not be perfect time without the click, but it's going to be good.
I mean, you do a perfect picture right there, man. And I'm going to say again, thank you, brother, for coming to my show, man. And the person responsible for you adorning and blessing my show with your presence is the CEO of our network, Florentino Buenaventura. In fact, you and Florentino run each other at NAMM and so on, and he's the one that brought it up. And he says, "Hey, man, do you want to interview Zoro?" And I said, "Well, what's your next stupid question?" And so, then I took,
I'm filled with stupid questions. What he's trying to say.
Hold on, I haven't introduced you yet. So with that said, now that I'm back on track itself, Florentino, would you say hi to Zoro? Zoro, say hi to Florentino, the one that interrupts me all the time.
What's up, brother?
Hey, man, what's going on, bro? Thanks so much for wanting to have me on the show. It's an honor.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I thought you were going to blame me for having you on the show.
There you go.
No, that's awesome. Jackie's definitely our flagship boy. He makes it happen, and he does a great job. And it's always a pleasure to have amazing talent talking to other amazing talent. So I think that's a good thing, and that's one of the unique things about the network is that we really try to spotlight. We talked about this before. We spotlight the people who don't always get a chance to be on the names on the marquee, but are definitely powering those names. And I think that's what all the cats that are here have shows on here like JR and Terry Woolman, and all of us are musicians here, and we all need to have our 15 minutes to keep our careers going and flowing, and then diversifying like yourself with DVDs, training, books. It's you're definitely the model, I think, for a lot of our young listeners to look towards and see. This is how you got to do it in this business, because it's not just about playing anymore. It's about the business, and you have to be a business person. You have to you have to know all the ins and outs, and that's the next. That's pretty much the that's the next moon, Mars for us to go to, is how do we move beyond just being artists, but to be businessmen. And so with that said, we really like to have people know how they can get these DVDs, these CDs. And by the way, I didn't, after all this time, I didn't realize that you were, a worship player. I do the same thing. We got a lot of cats that do that as well. So I think, I want to share that on some of the marketing, endeavors that we have to generate awareness about your passion for the worship side of this music world. So with that said, kind of all that, how can we find out more about you, brother?
Well, two things. One, right off the bat, I have, my regular Zoro the Drummer website. So it's just Zoro, Zoro, thedrummer.com. So that website is just sort of my musical career and all those sort of highlights and footage and TV interviews and stuff like that. So that's all there. But I have another website that's really close to my heart. I actually have a nonprofit company and a ministry, and it is called Zoro Ministries. So the website is zoroministries.org, and just ministry spelled out. And on that website is where I carry the vision of what I'm doing all around the country and all around the world, which is to equip this generation with the tools needed to fulfill their calling, their dream, their God-given talent. And one of the things I've been gifted with is the ability to teach these things, because there's a lot of there's a difference between a dream and a delusion. And we have a whole generation of people that don't understand all the practical steps it takes to fulfill a dream. I believe that God gives every single person in this world a gift or a talent of some kind, and also a dream somewhere in their heart is hidden, something they want to do, whether it's music or something else. And I've been fortunate to know how to unravel that dream and how to step-by-step achieve it. Because every dream that I had as a child, the dream of being a drummer, the dream of being a speaker, a teacher, and a writer, these are all dreams that I've lived out and I'm continuing to live out. But there are principles that have to be applied, and there's wisdom and knowledge that you have to acquire in order to do that. So that's what my new book is about, which is called Soar. Now, all of my books are on Amazon. None of them are on my websites. They're all on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. But the easiest way to pick up Soar is just go on Amazon and order it. And it's 9 life principles on how to walk out your dream. And it's filled with tons of inspirational stories, tons of anecdotes, tons of motivational quotes. Everyone who's read it has told me it's just mega changed their life. But that's my heart. So, and my nonprofit ministry, if people want to partner with me, I'm looking for monthly financial partners, people who want to give $5 a month, $10, $25, $100, whatever they want to give, because what that's enabling me to do, for instance, I'm going to be going to San Quentin Prison in October, and I'm going to go perform for the prisoners and speak an inspirational message of hope. So I'm speaking at prisons, youth correctional facilities, underprivileged schools. I'm speaking, there's many, many doors opening. So when people are partnering with me, they're not giving me money to make my Ferrari payment because I don't have one, and nor am I interested in one. What they are doing when they give me $25 or $50 or $100 is they're buying me a plane ticket so I can get my butt on a plane and fly to New York to go to a state prison and speak to people to change their life. And I'll do this, I've gone to Ghana, Africa, and helped kids in the jungles. So my ministry is about changing people's lives and about equipping them with hope and purpose. So I need partners, that want to partner with me monthly, but that's where the money goes. The money goes in getting me to these places because these people don't have any money to get me there. And I've been doing this for 25 years while I've been on tour with different people. And it wouldn't be uncommon for me to speak to underprivileged kids at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday night somewhere and then run over to the MGM Grand and then do the concert with Frankie Valli. It wouldn't be uncommon for me to do a concert with Lenny Kravitz in one night in Poland, and the next day I'm speaking to children from battered homes. So this has been my heart. This is who I am. This is what I do. And so if people want to connect with me, and also on my ministry website, which is just zoroministries.org, I have many blogs I've written. I have a series of 1-minute motivational messages called Soar with Zoro, Practical Wisdom for Life. I have tons of motivational quotes, thousands of my own that are original. So it's just a place to be inspired. There's tons of television interviews there. But my ministry is what my nonprofit is really what I want to spend the rest of my life doing, is just touching people's lives who will never have that opportunity. And quite honestly, there's not a lot of people who are willing to do that do what I do. And so I need people that want to get behind it, that know my heart, know my history, and want to see me touch more lives, because, those that go and those that sow get equal reward in God's sight. It always takes the person willing to go do the work and the person willing to fund the work to do anything good on this planet. So that's where I'm at. That's what I'm doing. All of those things are on my website, and it would be great to get people from the drumming community who've already known me and known my history and known what I'm about to be the first people to want to partner with me, so I can go into every prison in America and touch and change lives. I'm going in there to perform and to speak, and that's where I'm at. That's what I do. In fact, I know we only have a few minutes left, Jackie, but I'm going to say after we finish, let's talk offline and see how we can help, because that's what we're all about too, is making a difference in lives, and we really would like to help partner with that. And with that said, Mr. Jackie Bertoni, I'm going to pass it on back to you, brother.
Thank you, brother boy. Thank you,
so Florentino.
Much.
You're welcome. We'll talk after.
Yeah.
And you know what? With that said, Jackie's Groove. I'm very, very thankful, because I love this name. Zoro is also considered to be. This name is also the minister of groove. And
that's right.
When you get two groove masters on the phone and on stage, as I always said, man, the groove is thick enough and deep enough, and you have to get a ladder to get out of it. And and there's one thing I always want to, and I never forget to ask this question, because I've had my experience. And in the last minute and a half, real quick, brother, where were you? What were you thinking? And what were you doing when the first time you heard Zoro on the radio?
You're asking me?
I'm asking you.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, God, I can't even remember where that would have been. But I just know that I know that I might have been somewhere like in a car, and I just remember smiling from ear to ear, man, just going, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe it." Something that I did. I'm hearing it myself. I mean, yeah, you pinch yourself. You just go, the dream fulfilled. Never gets old. And
I want to just tell you, I want to say it over and over again, brother. I thank you immensely. My listeners worldwide, thank you. Your fans, thank you for sharing this. And as soon as it's archived, the show, I will get it out to you ASAP. We thank you, my brother, with open arms, man. And you're always welcome to come back to Jackie's Groove and anything that Intertalk Radio is. And Florentino will say he's an amazing marketer, and he's definitely got a place for you in the way of ministry and so on. So with that said, guys, I want everybody to say thank you to Mr. Zoro, ZoroTheDrummer.com, and go out and patronize this man and spend some ducats, man. We're not doing this for our health. So with that said, as I always end up all my broadcast by saying to everybody, peace through music. We love you, brother. God is great. And thank you for bestowing your talents on Jackie's Groove. Everybody say goodbye to Zoro. Zoro, much love, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, bro. It was a pleasure and an honor. I really thank you so much. I enjoyed it so much.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al DiMeola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.